It's a huge area out of home advertising. It's expected to reach $120 million in 2024 in the APAC region, which is a massive chunk of the pie. And I'm delighted to have a really expert panel with me today to look at these issues. So in order, please introduce yourself. Chloe, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Just testing. I'm not in my best voice today, but no, it will do. Chloe from Omnicom Media Group, Singapore. I'm also the chair for the Association of Advertising Marketing Singapore for Media and Measurement. Also chair for our home charter.
Ben, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ben. I'm Chief Product Officer for UM in APAC.
Hi, I'm Doreen. I'm the Regional VP for Southeast Asia Sales at Hivestack.
Hi, I'm Harish. I'm from the Marcoms team at Singtel Singapore, and I lead campaigns and launches for Singtel.
And I'm John Still, Head of Content at ExchangeWire. How are you? Thank you so much, audience. That was wonderful. I want to start quite broad, and it was alluded to in the last panel, the challenges that we're facing in the out-of-home industry at the moment. But yeah, what do you each think is the biggest challenge facing out-of-home in Southeast Asia? Chloe, I'll start with you.
A lot was going through my head as well as I listened to the other channel. Last year at a World Out-of-Home Conference, I talked about measurement. This year, no, I feel a lot of it is actually fragmentation. The industry is really fragmented, especially in this region, and transparency. I think these two, at this point in time, where we stand and moving forward, will be the growing challenge.
Ben.
I think my observation, and I love out-of-home, I think it's a fantastic medium. I think we lack real creativity here. We kind of just treat it as it's been treated for the last 20 odd years, put a poster up, and then you get a really great LED screen, but you turn it into a poster. And whilst there are odd bits of really good out-of-home, I think getting media agencies, creative agencies, clients to really step up and use it in a much more innovative kind of way, because it works all the way through the funnel, I think is the biggest challenge we've got, and it just is the poor cousin to so many of the other media touchpoints out there.
Doreen.
Yeah, because I've been doing this for the last 10 years, so I was just thinking like it's a long list, but I concluded that the biggest challenge we face, I think most of us here, who champion the topic on digital transformation, is actually people. Right, mindset shift is the biggest challenge I face day to day, regardless of which channels of conversations that I have, because the idea of change is frightening, and often the temptation is to resist it. So this is especially true for out-of-home advertising, where the traditional methods of buying, selling, delivering, executing, reporting, it's kind of deeply ingrained in some of us who have been in this industry long enough. So moving from traditional out-of-home into digital out-of-home into programmatic digital out-of-home, it's not solely dependent on technological advancement, right? It challenged us as individuals to rethink, reimagine, and to relearn, actually, something that we seem to be very familiar about. It places us in a very uncomfortable position. It questions our ability. Some of us might feel redundant, some of us might feel challenged, but that mindset shift we have to take the shift of that to a more positive approach. It's often we hear about will AI replace people, right? What is the value of automation in our job? Truly, AI replaces work that we don't really want to do, but the one who actually get the job would actually be the person who knows how to use AI. So individually, we have to move that mindset instead of looking at how is it challenging my current role, my business, and look into how can we utilize and move forward and gain more from technology advancement.
Lovely. Harish, your thoughts?
Well, for me, I'm going to talk about Singapore specifically because we operate mainly in Singapore. So for me, I think one of the biggest challenges is the wide adoption of tech by media owners. A lot of it is very, old school at the moment. And I faced this problem when we had to launch 5G in Singapore 3 years ago, right? We wanted to go out there, make use of out-of-home, and show exactly what you could do with 5G. So then we went and said, what could we do with the bus stop shelters? Nothing, right? Because they're all 2D. So to upscale it, I mean, to do it properly, you can't just give them a 5G SIM card. You need to upgrade the tech. It's like your phone, right? If you have a 5G phone, if you have a 4G phone, you can't use 5G, right? So that's the big problem. And the problem with this is it's making it very, it's hampering how dynamic, how interactive, how contextual our advertising in out-of-home can be, right? The tech is there, but it's expensive to roll it out large scale. So that's one of the big problems, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's given us a really nice cross-section of some of the problems that the industry is facing. You've all got some individual challenges there, and let's dive into them. First, Doreen, I want to pick up on what you were talking about, mind shift. Out-of-home's often seen as a brand awareness play. It's not seen as, the ROI is not there, the measurement's not there. And I just want to talk about, the data behind digital out-of-home and the analytics and how that's changing. So have you seen this grow and develop? How is this shifting perceptions of out-of-home?
I think with technology, fundamentally, the role of out-of-home does not change. It is still a brand awareness. It does what it does, right? Most of the community messages, what conversations actually, messaging actually happens on out-of-home. Data is data, right? It gives us points. And out-of-home, with data in out-of-home, what is done is it's kind of taken away guesswork, right? Out-of-home still work. The problem with out-of-home is we are finding reasons to justify its worth, right? It's come to a point that we have all seen ads on the street somehow, many times in our day, but it's unjustified, right? So data in play helps us to understand, and data for out-of-home gives us ground to improve. It keeps us, without a baseline of a reference point, it's hard to improve. So I think fundamentally, I feel data in out-of-home has to be understood so that it could be properly represented. Yeah.
Ben, how do you feel about the role of data and analytics in out-of-home?
And obviously, this is kind of my core area. I think it's that, first of all, clients are really bad at measuring what they do with marketing, so that creates a really bad conversation with the CFO, and that impacts your budgets. I think if you do it properly, you can really get to grips with it. And actually, you get the data and sophisticated data that you get from someone like a Hivestack, and that's fantastic. But then you take that forward in terms of what's that doing for your brand and how's that working for your brand. We do a lot of work at UM using econometric modeling, and we see that working all the way down through the funnel. But I think the really impressive stuff that we get out of it is how we see out-of-home having a huge synergistic benefit with a lot of social platforms, because people see out-of-home and then they'll see a social ad, and then you get an additional kind of credit, if you like, from the kind of the effectiveness of the out-of-home piece. And it gives you, out-of-home actually gives you one of the bigger bumps when you start looking at the synergies across different media channels. And I think that's really important. I think the other thing is there is a bit of a misnomer. Everyone's saying that out-of-home is at the top of the funnel. But all of the work that we do from a measurement and kind of using the data and tech kind of piece, when you start looking and building in foot traffic data into those models, when you start looking at kind of the way in which that people kind of interact with other ads in other spaces, it actually works all the way through the funnel, and it's a fantastic activation piece. Otherwise, why would Lazada, for instance, be putting all of their 11/11 ads? Because that's not about brand building, that's about activation. They know they get a response from it. So I think actually we've got all this data. I think we need to use it a lot better, but also there's a bigger conversation about how how clients, how agencies are actually using that to kind of create proper measurement strategies. Now, that's a different conversation, but it's very pertinent to what we're talking about.
Yeah, and Harish, you come from the brand side, coming into out-of-home advertising, and it is about awareness for you from a certain point of view. How do you feel about the deeper down the funnel stuff and what out-of-home offers for you?
Yeah, it's a good question because if you think about some of the most engaging out-of-home you've seen, they go beyond just sending you a key message, right? They prompt some kind of action, some kind of reaction, some kind of interactivity, right? So what we're trying to do is hack the funnel as well. So how can we use out-of-home to hack the funnel and drive straight to action or drive straight to engagement, right? We're trying to do that. Obviously, if the out-of-home formats we had were a bit smarter, we could do that better. So we're exploring that.
Yeah, and Chloe, when you're discussing with clients, how do you feel about the data side and explaining the measurement and ROI piece?
Yeah, I think coming back to the role of channel, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's unique to our home. I think if we look at it as an industry and all, right? When we look at responding to a good brand brief or a campaign brief, you go back to understanding audience, so that audience insights, integration down to channel prioritization is across the whole planning process, right? And we start to then understand how, with the use of data and tech integration, you are able to join the dots and provide the right measurement. I think sometimes what we don't do well as an industry is identifying the right success matrix. So role, what does that channel use or serve in achieving the campaign objectives or brand objectives, and the right success matrix. It can't be a one-size-fits-all. If you really truly appreciate the different characteristics of the different media platforms and all. So I do think data analytics, if we look at it, right, it's not something new. It's just that we are giving more frame and models to it. If you look at it, 20, 30 years, marketing mix modeling, economic matrix modeling exists, right? And we are using it more. So when I address the out-of-home industry, I just remember, right now the fragmentation is real because everyone is trying to be slightly more protective and own their measurement. But honestly, if we don't have a single currency of measurement for the industry, do you know what? Agency network, brand, we can create measurement framework and we will attribute marketing ROI based on the data we have, right? So I think the industry need to recognize that coming together, be a bit more transparent, having a single currency actually will foster the industry growth because it's an ecosystem, right? Nobody will win just by doing their own thing. And I think that's the challenge. When we talk about mindset, we talk about integration, we talk about investment, because everyone is slightly still more protective in the way that we are seeing in the out-of-home industry. So I really urge, as a whole ecosystem, if we can come together and look at, because out-of-home has a very strong recovery if you look at data, right, from COVID. In Singapore particularly, we are double-digit. So double-digit growth as well as double-digit share of advertising spend based on monitored spend. Globally, our home share is, I think just recently we broke the 5% cap. So for the longest time, it has stayed at 5%. There was a negligent shift from global data of our home share of spend as a total media expenditure by a slight percentage. It's not even a 10% move, right? But I think the opportunity, the world of possibilities is there from creative measurement and integration, but then it's then how we as industry come together to grow that. It's not just about data analytics. It's the mindset. It's about how we approach that strategic conversations. So bring that conversation upstream and not just about touch points.
Yeah, I think that that chimes with what you said, Ben, about clients not really knowing what to measure when it comes to out-of-home and not understanding. Do you feel a joint industry currency for out-of-home would be useful?
I think we need to get much smarter. We need to partner with people like Singtel around the use of devices so you can actually see where people are. And I think we do need to get to a proper industry currency. I was talking to a friend in the UK a couple of days ago about measuring out of home. And he was saying, how do we get 70% of Londoners see out of home? And it's like, trying to pull that apart, and it's a real smoke and mirrors kind of game, and I'm not sure we're really at the truth of it. And again, I think that massively undermines the importance of out of home. I think the other thing that we're not really kind of, well, I think everyone's got billboards in their minds, but I think we're also not thinking about the wider, bigger kind of out of home, and how that works and how that drives things as well. You know, Shein did a huge pop-up in Plaza Sing. What was really weird was there was no out of home that went with it around the area. But again, I think a lot of these things are really strong kind of out of home pop-ups where you can geofence it, collect IDs, and again, you get to understand that, and then you work out where people are. We've got to connect. We've got to get a better currency and get that better connected to the other media metrics we've got in place.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's interesting talking about Southeast Asia as a region. Singapore is something of its own beast in terms of out-of-home advertising. In terms of the infrastructure that's around the whole region for out-of-home and how different markets are affected, how they can be utilised, what are the major challenges in that, and where should the spend go? Doreen, what do you think about the infrastructure and integration?
I think from our experience supporting and developing the Southeast Asia region, we experience uneven progress and growth. We're very lucky to be in Singapore where we have the right infrastructure, but not all markets within the Southeast Asia have the necessary infrastructure. So in Singapore, we have conversations of getting media owners to get 5G, right? But perhaps in other markets, we're talking about electrical points, downright to converting a static billboard into into a digital screen. It is, where do we get the electricity, right? And it goes to the second question in terms of internet, right? It's not about even 5G, it's about 3G. It's just getting connected. So this is kind of, it kind of drives down into the business owner's perspective where upgrades are pretty expensive, right? The first step, it's not just about adopting it. There's a significant amount of investment for markets outside of Singapore, where they have to look at digital screens. Not just that, they have to look at software, the right software, because it's the backbone of integration. And you have to look at the right partners, the right people to be having this conversation, spearheading the integration. So integrating the likes of programmatic and the data analytics into out-of-home, it's often complex, right? It's a little unlike the likes of, when we're going into web page, right? The formats of YouTube, regardless of region, they work the same, Facebook the same. So one of the struggles we face out-of-home as an industry, not just in terms of currency, what you've mentioned, totally agree, standardization. It's also standardization in certain ways we function. So it then translates into market readiness. So as much as we want to push progress forward, we have to fundamentally look at, where do we start? What are the right markets to start, and then the readiness.
Yeah, Harish, you're looking at different markets for Singtel. How's digital helping decide what to place where, how to, plan your campaigns?
Wait, are you talking about out of home?
Yeah, of course, yeah, in terms of your out of home planning.
Well, Singapore is very well connected, right? In fact, we are a first nation to have full 5G coverage. So, but then again, our out-of-home digital is not exactly that connected because there's a lot of fragmentation to a point as well. You need those platforms which can bring everything together, but you have operators operating on their own. I'm hoping to see that at least with transit media, at least we have some progress in that area. Especially, I think one of the players has the whole of bus stop shelters now, together with trains and buses and all. So hopefully, maybe that's a starting point for us, for it to get really connected, and then for things like 5G to come in. We are talking to actually some of Singtel is talking to a couple of the players to kind of up or spec up their formats, their out of home displays and all that. So, and this, I think, can have a lot of interesting possibilities, especially in a market like Singapore. Once you upgrade the tech, With the connectivity there, you're going to unleash a lot of different things, right? The content is going to be amazing. You're going to be able to integrate AR, mixed reality in there. You're going to be able to upload things in real time. You're going to get AI involved as well, and unleash AI, because you need a lot of computing fast computing for that to happen. You need very low latency. You need high bandwidth. So a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, that's led us really nicely onto the AI question. I think it's cut through most of the panels we've done and will do for the foreseeable future. How is AI impacting out of home to start with? Chloe, how do you feel AI has made a difference?
I think definitely, right? If you look at the advancement that were made across the industry, across different aspects of where industry focus is, right? If we kind of broadly classify into 3 pillars, from creativity, operational excellence, to delivery measurements, right? AI has a role that support and enable our people and the business throughout, right? From creativity, we talk about audience insights gathering, to coming up with prototypes in very short span, right? That whole creativity process is accelerated with AI. In the operational front, we see that as well. I was just talking to some of our friends during the break, and those who have been in the industry long enough remember the times where you have to upload creatives, you have to do certain work in a very manual way, and it takes a lot of time. But now with AI enablement, it's just seconds. The possibilities and permutations and the ability to run operational efficiency is a lot higher than before. Then it comes to delivery. So when I look at our home, I look at it as an ecosystem. It's not just static or digital or programmatic. It's the entire tech stack that kind of connect the dots and support even from a content management perspective as well, right? So you start to see AI in just like in any business organization in the industry, it starts to have its presence and good use throughout the organization. I think it goes back to then, are we using AI for the right reason? Because I think at the start of it, a lot of the AI conversation is centered around productivity. But I'd like to see AI changing our professional, our talent in the way that they are upskilled, that they are seeing that mindset shift or growth, so that they will drive the next change. The higher intelligence is always going to be human. It has to be.
Ben, how do you feel about the rise of AI in out of home?
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to agree very, very much with what Chloe is saying. I think we're very much still in early stages, but I do see, once you start getting the infrastructure in place, and Singapore is a great place to talk about it, where AI, you can start turning out of home into kind of a more dynamic, kind of creative kind of response. It can respond not just to kind of weather APIs, but you're responding much more to the way in which people even engage with out of home. But I think that then says, how do you use AI to drive greater levels of creativity within the out of home space? Enabling, as Chloe says, our people to be more creative, come up with better ideas, so that then we can get a greater return on it. But it can also be a fantastic enabler. I mean, I see a future where, and I know there were some kind of vending machines in Japan like 15 years ago that were supposed to be able to read your face from a biometric piece. But if you could get to the point where, and I would see it in very quickly, you're going to get kind of facial recognition or facial reading kind of response. Ads will respond in that kind of way, perhaps. If you look at the System 1 piece, based on how faces respond, ooh, they're not really liking that ad, let's find an ad, or let's kind of flex that ad to something they like. I think it's got huge, huge benefits. But I think as an industry, we've got to almost kind of collectively come together and say, what can we really do with this? Because at the moment, there is a possible kind of race to the bottom of just using AI for automation, and that's a really, really bad place to be. I want to see it really lifted up. And I think that's going to inspire our people to kind of go on the journey that Doreen's kind of referring to. We need to get people more engaged and excited about this kind of space. It's going to happen in somewhere like Singapore first. Bangkok's got some great digital out-of-home spaces, but it feels very, very traditional in execution. But when you're getting to other markets or get away from the big kind of metro centers, it's going to be slower. But I think where you've got high traffic, high affluent people, it has huge, huge potential. And actually, really, we're going to see that share of spend go beyond that 5% point quite rapidly. Partly because people are going to want to pay for those spaces because it's worth getting it.
Excellent. Doreen, how are you seeing the rise of AI? How does it impact your day-to-day?
I guess it makes a lot of things that we talk about maybe 3 to 5 years ago possible. So there were more that we were hoping to do with out-of-home space, because out-of-home is a very big canvas, right? A lot of messaging could be dynamic, so we could do dynamic creative optimization, essentially serving out relevant ads, be it the relevant times, relevant conditions, based on data. The second piece is actually AI. The value of AI in out-of-home is that it takes away lots of manual work, and out-of-home is a business of lots of manual work, right? For people who have been doing traditional planning, you will imagine, a site list that's generated in Excel spreadsheet, right? Each time the client comes back to you, I don't like this location, make a change. We go back, it's a manual work all over again. So the beauty about AI is that, it helps us to very quickly crunch number down, such as availability, right? And then proposing sites that are relevant. So that's definitely one value of that. Second part to creative is out-of-home exists as a format with bespoke formats. Potentially, if you run 10 screens, you need 8 creatives. So with the value of AI in creative aspect is that it takes away time from people who are generating those creative, where it's doing very mundane work. It's just adjusting aspects into creating something more creative. So I'll just give an example of a campaign that I love, that is by McDonald's in Japan. So COVID was a time where people felt, really down. People were looking for something new. So they launched a campaign called Take a Chance, right? Take a Chance is about connecting people to McDonald's, right? Essentially, we have been living, most of the time, we make decisions about our meals. Okay, before I head into McDonald's, I would be thinking, should I get a filet-o-fish or a chicken burger? What's running at a promotion? So they ran a series of billboards. Essentially, it's called Take a Chance. So they launch meals where you just scan a QR code, place an order, and pick it up, right? This creative idea wouldn't have been possible without AI. So you can't imagine you're serving 2,000 different options manually back-end. It's going to take up a lot of work. So the value of AI is it allows us to do a lot more that we hope we were able to do probably 3 years ago, and it's made them possible today.
Excellent. Before we finish, we are running rapidly out of time. I'm going to ask to bring up the poll results. Heavily interesting. Good that no one has no opinion. It's divisive. I'm going to ask you individually your thoughts. Is fake out of home, which is proliferating online thanks to AI and creative tools, is it out of home? Are you for it, against it? What does it bring or take away from the industry? I'll start with you on that one, Harish.
Well, I think fake out of home, I think we have to be very careful about what we see and believe online. But I think what fake out of home, if you think about it positively, what it can do is help inspire new creatives and new ways of thinking, or our creativity, right, to do things differently. I would say that's the biggest opportunity of fake out of home.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's encouraging, pushing the industry to go further, I suppose.
Yeah.
Doreen, how do you feel about fake out of home campaigns?
It means it works, right? We only fake things because there's demand. So essentially, it's on the brighter side of stuff is that it means it works. We fake it because it's something that is needed. And probably it gives us areas to consider, because we faked it because it's probably something that we wish to achieve, but we couldn't get there. So it identifies certain gaps to help us improve ourselves also within the industry.
Yeah. Ben, how do you feel about it?
It's naff. I'm just going to call out, it's naff. It's not out of home, and it's poorly executed social. Put your media behind a proper social media campaign. Put your money behind a proper out of home campaign. if I was Irene Lim, I would be furious about that House of the Dragon thing. They should have been having a conversation with it, with MBS, and they should have done something as Disney did. That is really good out of home. Just talking to people, I don't know. I've not been able to find a single person who actually saw it beyond LinkedIn. It's another example of the industry just talking to itself and disappearing up its own backside. And I think we have to be so careful about that. And I think it undermines what out of home is. So I'm against it. Do proper out of home. Use it for concept, sure, but keep it in-house. Then go and have the conversation with the partners.
Yeah, good, strong. Chloe, how do you feel about it?
So how many have seen the Hearts of Dragon? How do you find out
On
about
LinkedIn.
it? Yeah. It's an interesting one and truly controversial, right? And the cornerstone of our industry is celebrating creativity, authenticity, and trust. So I'll go back to that, right? No, respect for IP. That's intellectual property, and we are in this business for a good reason. We have the passion, we have the enthusiasm. I won't kind of discount it, but I think with any innovation, it's just like before years, I mean, you look at decades of journalism, that's then paid editorial. You look at social platform, and then we have sponsored posts. Yes, we have out of home, we have retail media, and now they call themselves fake. They are not claiming they are out of home. They call it fake out of home. But it is showing us the possibilities of things to come. Are we thinking as an industry, how are we going to embrace and be progressive as building owners, assets management, as well as regulatory body? What are we going to do about this? Right? It's something, I think it can be very stimulating. It's controversial. We might have our opinion. But I do think there could be something there, and you open up possibilities for all of us.
Yeah, well, we can see it as creative inspiration rather than stealing of people's real estate. Well, that's all we have time for. That was a fantastic panel, great discussion. I just want to thank you all very much for joining me, and thank you all very much for listening.